So Junji has helped me evaluating the survey.
Yeah.
And he will present what we've learned.
Okay, thank you, Kai. My name is Junji. I'm a postdoc in CE and the ESOM group. So basically in here I present what we have summarized from the survey for internally survey. Basically you can see this is a DTU CE user profiles. It's not for individual user profile. We try to identify 5 typical generic user profiles. So basically we're following we are trying to study the user file for the 5 research groups. Okay, basically, yeah, first I present the research field and the common interest among these 5 research groups. And then we want to study the lab practice that is carried out by the people in here. And then we want to share some experience regarding knowledge sharing. And also we want sharing the experience on how to share information and sharing data. Afterwards, we will talk about a little bit factor regarding teaching activity in here. And then we want to give some recommendation for this survey. So on the side here, we have a picture. It's basically talking about the current research activities is carried out by the 5 research groups. We can see it's quite homogeneous in their research activities. For example, we can see on the middle side, there's quite a few activities. It's only conducted by the alcohol group people. And also we find interesting overlaps across groups. So basically, we will particularize by overlap size. For example, we find out 3 research topics is, nearly studied by every group. The optimization and also simulation technology and algorithms. And also EV technology is also quite popular in different groups. We also find some topics that is basically shared by 3 groups. Such topics including distributed control, network planning, stochastic method. And we also find out energy storage, wind power, diagnostic method, and monitoring. This kind of topic is also equally studied by 3 groups. Furthermore, we find out that in these 2 topics, there is power system stability and control and HVDC, which have 2 groups people have interest on this topic. Specifically, we find out that there's several topics only shared by the ESOM and ERIS group. We can see on the right side of the picture. So, yeah, so this is basically the. And then regarding lab practice, we can see from the top of the picture, we can see only a fraction of the CE staff actually is practically involved in lab work. And specifically, we want to find out from the bottom of the picture, we can see that is, we find out how much time they spend for those people who are on regularly based involved in lab work. We can think that is basically spend less than 50% of their time in the lab. So yeah, there's still a lot of potential to use the lab. We also want to study, because we have several lab labs in the PowerLab and we want to see how it is known by the people. We can see on the left side, it says that, okay, well, I never heard of it, and on the blue it says, well, I know it, but I'm not up to date on current activities. On the right side is basically talking about how it is using and then have experience on that. So basically, we can see for a lot of labs, it's basically people know that, but they didn't use it. So this is a chance for that to use the lab. Furthermore, we also try to learning some factors regarding how the time they spend on doing lab work. We find out that the preparation of the lab work seems to take similar time as experimental execution. furthermore, we find out that the administrative overhead this time is quite diverse for different people. They have different time on this issue. Yeah, it happens for several months of delay due to administrative issues. We also summarized from the survey that there's several factors could causing the experimental delay. First is the administrative issue. That's basically between the miscommunication between the up level, who is responsible for the lab, and the people who are really using the lab. There's some basically this kind of miscommunication. Regarding, we also have some practical issue and technical factors that is causing the delay. First is incomplete documentation is a big problem mentioned several times by the users. Yeah, also for some software issues, like there's a bottleneck regarding the technical skills for using the lab. For example, SCADA system is mentioned only a few people can use that right now. Of course, weather is also an important factor during lab, for example, for PV experimental. And also it mentioned that component failure, as Anna said before, is also a problem for causing the delay. Yeah, this is what we find out for the lab practice. Then we want to share what we find out regarding sharing the knowledge. Basically, we divided into this sharing knowledge into three parts. That is knowledge sharing and information sharing and data sharing. I will just, what is we can see on the picture, basically we try to distinguish this sharing of the knowledge. On up is human to human, and then we have the human to machine. So basically regarding these three entities, this from more to less structured. For example, data is more structured, and knowledge is more less structured. So we think when we talk about how to support this kind of level of the interest, support this, and then we need to think about what is really is shared about regarding the knowledge. I'll go further details regarding this. What do we find out regarding the sharing of this knowledge? Okay, sharing knowledge. So basically, this is exchange of skills, for example, due to common use of tools and also programming language. We find out that the most common tools, for example, including MATLAB, LaTeX, and Eclipse, these kind of things, of course, is outside of the center. And we also find that some tools is more specifically used by a group. For example, PSSE is mostly used by the ELSO group. What is interesting for us, we find it could be to share experience on how to using this kind of medium common used tools. That is means, for example, Power Factory is used by full groups. Games is used by, full groups, and this kind of we can share this kind of knowledge on the tools. We also try to identify what is the most common language. We find out that MATLAB, Java, Python, this kind of languages is quite used in different groups. It's good to share the experience. And in the lab, we also summarize some factors like can use to support the sharing the knowledge in the lab. For example, here we can see, these people said ask Pierre. We can ask anything to him regarding the lab, and regarding hardware in SUS lab, we can ask Daniel and program Oliver and Anna. This kind of information is quite useful for we find out from the survey. So regarding information sharing, we think is often tied to files and, for example, models. We find out the most common model type is including electrical power systems on the right of the figure, and also electrical component. We also tried to identify what is the model exchange between practice. We found out people prefer to use their self-developed models instead of models provided by external collaborators. So we think this means it's potential to have potential to improve share in-house models. Even for standard models, we find out that basically there's only standard models for electrical system models. But even for these standard models, there's no overlap across the 5 groups here, which means for each group, they have their own standard models regarding the electrical power system model. I think it is potential to develop some in-house standard models, for example, for statistic, economic, and thermal models. This is quite a, I think this is also hot models. Yeah, so then we think we have some also try to see what is the way we can share the models with colleagues. We find out that ODriver, Dropbox, and email is the most ranking number 3 for sharing models with your colleagues. Okay, regarding data. So data is actually homogeneous, structured, small structured, and with repetitive structure. We first try to see what kind of data is used in different groups. We find out that basically we can see on the right is the data is all type of data is required across groups. Those data including grid data, including voltage and load information, and the renewable production data, and also weather data. This kind of data is required for all the group. Yeah, and then we also try to see how people storing the data when they're doing experimental. We find it's quite different across groups. For example, we can see on the paper note of this picture, most of it's people from ALCO, they're using paper note to do experimental. And yeah, so that's quite different from different group. Regarding, we also try to see whether people using large data scale. We find out that gigabyte scale data is used in all the groups, mostly in Elmo, and mostly in ALCO. They use less data. It's quite diverse for ESON group. For the on, we want to study how is big data stored. So basically, have several answers. We have ODriver, Dropbox, and CampusNet is different way to storing big data, and also use SQL database. Yeah, we also try to see how people exchange data in. Basically, we find out that CSV is used quite often between MATLAB and Excel. So that is we have learning regarding how to share knowledge. Now I'm talking about a little bit about teaching. So we find out that, of course, teaching is the purpose of teaching is to induce learning that we can do by several activities. Those activities including course, hand-on exercises, course project, and special course, and also bachelor and master thesis. We find out that lab exercises are part of around 50% of the course using lab as their part of the course. And also teaching activities in the lab are quite asymmetric across groups. For example, we find out that Elmo and ESON don't use lab for course teaching, but it is used quite often in ALCO and ESON. And also for the type of studies that is shown in the picture, we can see that is quite wide a lot. ALCO is basically cover the studies is equal on all these types. For ERIS and ESON group, basically is project type activities dominate a lot. Yeah, we want to propose some discussion whether it is good to have what type of packaged software setup could be facilitate lab-related student activities. Okay, that is what we have learned from the survey, what we have summarized. Basically, we want to give some recommendation. We suggest it should be interesting to take a look where is the CE internal knowledge sharing interest. based on these things, we have some suggestions. It's better to establish collaboration space in the form of workshop or wiki site or email list, since we have a lot of subjectives shared in different groups. It's better to get a common place for sharing knowledge about existing models by type. It would be better to incentivize collaboration for future research group in terms of general data and modeling sharing. And also could be interesting to establish and sharing the best practice. For example, there's a lot of good experience in the running project, SOSPRO project, regarding data and modeling sharings. Yeah, we also think it would be very useful to consider how to standardize exchange, if such, for example, for the models, whether we should use a common information model to share the models, and what kind of the common format is used to sharing this model. It's also, all in all, we think is we should consider more emphasis on sharing in-house and non-NDA covered models. Regarding large-scale data sharing, well, yeah, we should think about some using database, and further on we should, because currently we think a lot of people using Dropbox, but it's quite unsafe to using Dropbox, so it's better to using old driver for internally. And how to put this data in the place, and in most cases, how to enter sampling script is the best form of documenting data. Yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, other questions?
Yeah.
I have a comment for that question.
Yeah.
I really like that, because I think there were a lot of useful information. I mean, we are a big center, 100 people, so we are working on a lot of projects, and most of the time we don't know what our neighbor is doing and what he's using. So analyzing this data was very useful, and I think, I mean, since you got 50% of the responding, so I think it is very statistically relevant. I mean, 50% of the population is a lot. So I think that the results that you get out of it are very, let's say, relevant. And I would suggest, if you have not considered it yet, to present this kind of results to the whole department or to the whole center, because I think it's nice that everybody is aware of that. So I would strongly recommend to present, maybe not these slides, but at least some of these slides to the next center general meeting, because I'm sure that I mean, both high-level people and also low-level people like me will appreciate these kind of things.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for the
comment.
Yeah. We found out that there's also like a lot of ideas sound good, but when you look at the data, some things are more obvious to start with than others, and I think that can be. We should put numbers on these. We would start as one, and then propose 3 only when we establish the first part. Are there any further questions?